to Morlock Me, the weekly podcast where we discuss books and their screen adaptations. My name's Charlie and my co-host again is Al.
Hi.
This week, unfortunately, we did say we were going to be doing The Man in the High Castle, but we haven't been able to get through the entire series on Amazon just yet. So what we've decided to do is we're going to push it back until next episode, so that'll be episode 3. Basically, so then we can do a full in-depth analysis and basically just give you everything that we know and sort of really give it, a good job instead of sort of just trying to rush it and make it, what we can. So we're going to wait for that till next episode. However, this episode we shall be doing Gone Girl, which is the Gillian Flynn book and also David Fincher film adaptation. So that's what we're going to be talking about this week. Now, Al, what did you think of it?
Yeah, I really liked both. It was one of those rare occasions where I sit there and I go, actually, I'm equally enamoured with the film as well as with the novel. I actually did it backwards because I watched it and then read it. So,
interesting.
So I was one of those people, which I don't often do.
No,
but,
I think I'm one of those people where I try and read the book first. If I know the films come out, like certain films I know have come out previously and recently, where I want to read the book first and then go into it, because then you sort of have the story and you have the idea in your head, and then you sort of see how they've done it in the film, like who they've cast, like sort of. I thought David Fincher, because David Fincher is renowned for being very honest and like true to the novels. Like there's obviously some bits that are a bit different, and some characters that maybe don't feature as much or feature a bit too much in the film or something like that. But I think David Fincher is very good at sort of book to film adaptations.
I think as a rule, particularly in that, he was very loyal to the source material.
Yes.
Which, I mean, rightly so, because it's an incredibly
It was really, it's so
novel.
good. It's right that it was a bestseller, really.
It's one of my favourite thrillers of all time.
Yes.
Because I had no idea what was going on right up till.
Well, because did you think, like, what were your as you were reading the book? Did you think it was Nick? Did you think that he could have done it?
Well, I think that's the way you're supposed to. I sort of went in with the mindset of it's not going to be as it seems. But I was fairly aware of the fact that he wouldn't turn out to be there was going to be a twist. There wasn't going to be a kind of
it wasn't going to be so straightforward, really.
a goodie and a baddie.
Yeah.
Which actually I really liked. I liked the fact that I didn't like him or Amy at all.
Yes, I think it's good because that sense it's I think it's always in those kind of stories that there's always got to be like a good guy and a bad guy, like you said. Yeah. But I think it's interesting where it's like both people are despicable and it's like they're really like, it's kind of like you sort of want to be like, you are actually really good for each other. Like this marriage is fine. You can just grow up and hate each other. That's fine. So I think it's a really good book. I really like it. What did you think of the casting? Like, do you think the casting was well done?
So I think firstly with that, I think the initial problem as a director would have been to get inside the minds of actors, because obviously with the book you've got the ability to be within the minds of two different people, whereas I found in the film he had a lot of narration and a lot of kind of exposition additives that came in, which really helped to get inside the minds of the characters. But I also thought that the casting worked particularly in the favour of that, in getting right inside their minds. Because Ben Affleck's face, although it's not expressive, it is simultaneously expressive. I find I
think he did. Oddly, when I heard Ben Affleck was going to be in it, I thought, okay, interesting choice. When I heard Rosamund Pike was going to be in it as Amy, I thought, does that really work? Because she's never really been a bad character, I don't think.
She wasn't Die Another Day, wasn't she?
Yeah, but like even then it wasn't like she was really bad. She was like the Bond bad, where it's kind of like she's sassy and sexy kind of bad,
Yeah.
And it's like, in the sense that she's not been like an evil character in a way, like, which is kind of what Amy is, in my sense. Because like I've seen her in, like she was, I think she was Jane in Pride and Prejudice, and she was, I think she was in An Education as like a ditzy blonde, and you know, so she's from things I've seen, she's been essentially the good or sort of slightly comedic character, and kind of like the sprightly.
I know what you mean. I know what
English
you mean.
Rose essentially. So then to see her in this role was a complete it was very brave casting, I find, because considering. I don't think a lot of people would really have gone, especially in America, would have gone, who's, you know, oh, Rosamund Pike, of course, the first choice.
That one from James Bond? No, I know exactly what you mean. I think,
you know, considering it was such an, you know, considering there was Ben Affleck in it, and like, you know, and it was David Fincher was directing, it was such a big book. I'm not saying that, you know, like, Rosamund Pike's not well known, but it's like, I think internationally, I don't think she's as well known as, you know, I think in England we were all like, of course. But I think she did like the cool girl speech is possibly my favourite bit in the film. Yeah. Because I know it's sort of rewritten. It's not how it is in the book, but I thought that was just brilliant because it's just that manipulation that you sort of then it's suddenly then you go, wow, she's really evil. Like this woman's like, but so calmly she's done it, like so calm, you know, and yet she's. You know, it's just this speech, and it's just like, you know, just speak. I don't know if it would speak to women. I don't know if, because I know friends of mine have come out of the film and just gone, I've really had to reevaluate my relationship. Yeah. I don't think in reality, but they've said it. I don't know. I hope not.
Is my partner planning to kill me?
Every bloke was thinking that as they came out of the cinema. But I think it's one of those things where I think it did make everybody, maybe the film, because I think as much as people read the book, I think the film was seen more because it was you know it was such a high cast and it was so publicised and everyone was like you have to go and see it, you know I think everyone did sort of come out of it thinking going, maybe, you know, I think the main thing was like I shouldn't take my relationship for granted, and it's like, oh, my spouse might try and kill me. I don't think it was that, but I think it was very interesting. I think David Fincher really knows how to do a really good thriller film. I think he really
certainly got that in it, because I mean it is. I don't like to use the phrase page turner, but it really is a page turner. So he had that to his advantage, that he had a piece of material to work from that was genuinely excellent. But I do agree with you completely. He absolutely, you know, did a top-notch film out of it. I don't actually think I know anyone who's taken longer than 2 or 3 days to read the book.
No, and I'm quite a quick reader. And I think I took about 2 days to read it. Because as much as, you know, you want to keep reading, because like you said, it is a page turner. Yeah. It's one of those books, because the thing about it, which is good, and I think, again, like you said, to David Fincher's advantage, was it's fast paced. It doesn't take ages to build. Yeah. To, like, you know, because it's kind of, you know, he wakes up, it's kind of, then she goes missing, and then things go on, and it's like, it amps up from there. Yeah. And it's like more gets some, you know, sort of revealed, really, like, you know, her idea of like she was pregnant, and, you know, and like all the credit card debts, and you know, the secret girlfriend and stuff like that, and it's like suddenly like all these things come out the woodwork very quickly, which I think is good, because I think any longer and I think people would get bored, because they'd be like, oh, she's still missing and nothing's happened. You'd be like, oh, but it's like, she's missing, and we found out this about her, we found out that about her, we found this about their marriage. The diary was a great thing. I think that was a fantastic plot hole, because I think on just the evidence alone, I think it probably would have been like she's been kidnapped. Yeah. But I think it was such a clever thing to be like, a diary is such a deadly tool suddenly. It's like, it's, you know, essentially it's the written word becomes the, you know, the sort of the smoking gun.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's the validity that the written word holds. How can you take? Because then I found myself asking all the way through, well, this, you know, provably in the first half there's an unreliable narrator. So how much do I trust Nick? How much do I trust Amy? How much can either of what they say be taken as fact? You know, it's...
No, exactly. I think that's the whole reason of why it's so good, is because you're constantly second guessing and sort of going, but is this true? Like, I think especially in points in the film, as much as the book as well, with like the flashbacks of like reading the diary, you kind of go, you know, where she's like, I'm gonna have to, I think it's at the end of the film, she's like, I'm gonna have to, you know, you're gonna have to admit about the gambling issues and, you know, the violence and stuff, and you're like, and he sort of just takes it, and you're like, but was there any violence? Because you don't really ever find that out. Like, as much as he says, but that he might say like, I never touched her or something, it's like, is he lying to cover it up?
I'm.
You never know if he's ever been violent. Like I think you can obviously tell that he was.
Yeah.
Yes, he was cheating. Yes, he got lazy after he was sort of laid off from work and stuff like that. But I do think there's like, because there was a lot that wasn't in the film, which I felt should have been. Like Nick's father was only in it for a fleeting moment, and he sort of was a bit like. Well, I think it was like, he's in it for about 5 minutes or something, and it was because he's not, I think he's got like, I think it's almost like Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
They
actually, I was thinking about this. They really and truly, it was very limited in terms of secondary characters.
Yeah,
there was. There's the twin Margot and Andy. Yeah. And apart from that, it's just kind of peripheral. Characters.
Like
no one
Tanner
else.
Bolt comes in quite a lot.
Oh yes, of course. Yeah,
he's quite good. I think that the detectives, like the detective and as a sort of like second in command, they don't feature as prominently in the book. They sort of are there doing the research and that's it. Whereas like in the film, it's like they're around every turn. Like they're the one that finds out that Amy purchased a gun when they go into the abandoned mall. Whereas actually in the film, in the book,
Nick finds out.
Yeah. And so it's kind of like, I feel that maybe it's kind of the whole idea that the police are doing more of like the weaseling out. I don't know if that's, they wanted to make it a bit more like an investigation instead of it just sort of being Nick finds it all out. I think maybe it's sort of that element of Nick is pretty much in the dark as well about it. Because as much as Nick is in the dark about it, he doesn't know what happened to Amy. I think, he does find out a lot of the
well, I think it's really. Because in the film they made less of a big deal of the whole treasure hunt thing.
Yeah.
And it's the cops doing Nick's treasure hunt.
Yes.
Which I don't know. I felt like that was a bit of a flaw because what you get to understand through that treasure hunt is that Nick has an intrinsic understanding of Amy. He understands a lot about the way she thinks.
Yeah.
And although it's a big shock for him when he finds out that she is completely mad, he still, I think, in the book, you can kind of see more of how he gets to, okay, I know her quite well, she's crazy, let's be together. Yeah. Whereas in the film, I thought it was more of a leap to go from, my wife's a nutter, I'm going to stay with her and start a family. So I think, in that sense, I think the book has more scope to do that because you've got text rather than
I think
visual.
there's time because there's a lot of other plot holes because it's like when Amy and Nick first met, they meet at the party and then they don't see each other again for 8 months. It's only until they meet on the street again that they meet up again, and you're like, oh, this isn't. It's just like suddenly it's like this whirlwind romance, and it's like, and also the proposal. We never find out through the diary how Nick proposed. So the proposal at the party is kind of another thing to be like, to another story and stuff like this. Yeah. But it's it's interesting. Like I think the film's really really good, and I think David Fincher's done a great job. And I think it's there's loads of. I think as much as like what you're saying with the book at the ending where it's like it gradually builds that's like he knows her and he knows what she's sort of capable of. He knows sort of who she really is essentially. And then over time he comes to sort of essentially accept and go, okay, we're just going to have to, we'll do this. But I think it's sort of, in my opinion, it's kind of sort of swept up a bit at the end where it's kind of like she's back, they're home, 4 weeks later, 7 weeks later, oh, she's pregnant, yep, they're going to be fine, and done. And
I think
like, it's finished,
It was slightly Hollywoody. Only a little bit, but I think the way that the relationship is portrayed, it kind of this romance that is picturesque in these kind of little snippets of romance that we, the audience, are exposed to. Whereas in the novel, you've got more of the gritty reality of what it's like when you first get into it. I'm not saying that relationships are terrible. You get into them and they're just miserable from the outset.
But their one is like you see more of the plot holes. I think when you sort of see the film, you kind of believe like, oh, their relationship was perfect, and how could she do this? And it's like, oh, we made one mistake, and you're like, but actually in the book, he's there's so much going on. He's a real jerk, and it's like, I think it's like he misses their anniversary to go to a strip club with friends when they all get laid off, and you're like,
So
there's there's that element to it, because I think it's like the only thing you really see is that he's a bit lazy and he has a mistress. I know that's not like it's not like he was harmless, but I think it's like there's a lot more in the book that sort of you can sort of realise how she was sort of not ground down to the point of committing this act, but sort of you could see like the weight that was obviously on her, that was like, because like there's the whole idea that when they moved to Missouri, there's no mention of Amy helping care for Nick's sick mother before she dies.
Yeah.
And there's also no mention of just kind of sort of like how it was for them in Missouri at the time and stuff like this. And it's I think that sort of level should have been included in it maybe, but at the end of the day, it's I still think the film works. I don't think I think there's bits which I suppose could have been left out. There's bits where with the whole idea that I think it's because there's Tommy, who was the guy who she initially accused of assaulting her, who was then in prison, had to then plea down, and there was a guy that Nick met and stuff like this. But there's also another one, I think it was Hillary, who was like her
school friend, and I think that is so good for establishing Amy has this inherent need to punish people who she feels have wronged her.
Yeah.
Which I think goes more of a way to explaining why she is the way that she is, because she does feel the need to punish people.
Yeah. Because they did say that there was a stalker, but they didn't know who it was, and you're like, but we know who it was, because if you've read the book, it's this Hillary person. And I think they should have included that, because I think Nick going around and meeting these two people, it would have been, instead of just going to the one person and then being with him, just going from Tommy with this rape accusation to Nick supposedly murdering her, it's one extreme to another.
Yeah.
Whereas if it starts with the stalking and then the next one and the next one, it slowly builds, and you can kind of see a pattern and go, oh, okay, she's building up and building up. I think also what was interesting was the fact that they didn't include the fact that Amy pretended she had a fear of blood. So that, because it was like a year before she decided to disappear, essentially.
Yeah.
She would be like, she'd faint or pass out if she ever saw a sight of blood or something like this. And so it would sort of lead more reasonable doubt that the blood that was smeared all over the house couldn't have been from her, because she's got this inherent fear of it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, I think stuff like that would have been interesting to put in, and the way in which Amy obtained the blood, because in the film she gets the IV. And she does that, which she steals from doctor's office, which I sort of again feel is a bit like,
it's very dramatic, isn't it?
And I don't really feel that anyone could do that, just steal an IV from a doctor's surgery.
Or indeed drain that much from yourself. Because that's a lot of blood she lost.
It's a lot of
blood. Then she drove a long way with...
I was like, fine. Whereas in the book, it's a bit more dramatic, because it's a lot cleaner in the film. Whereas in the book, she just gets a box cutter to her wrist. And just goes for it. Which I feel is... I sort of felt that was a bit more real. Like, in the sense of, yes, it's all planned and stuff, but I really don't feel like I couldn't do it. If I was really planning, I don't think I could be like, oh, I know how to put an IV drain all that blood, and then make it stop and stuff like that. Again, cutting your wrist, I suppose, is not going to be the same, but it's a bit more, I suppose, realistic in the sense. Like, it's kind of, I don't know. That's just my opinion, obviously.
Which you're entitled to, even though you may be wrong.
Well, So I just felt it was really good. I think David Fincher really did a good job, and I just think because there's lots of themes to it, aren't there?
I think the main debate that plagued critics is whether or not it is feminist or anti-feminist. And I can see both sides of an argument there.
Yeah.
I can see that obviously she is kind of punishing men who've wronged her.
Yeah.
But equally, she is living an entire life that's been defined by the men around her.
That's true.
So I can see both sides of the argument. I think I don't know. Do you?
Because it's dangerous getting into the whole like, is it feminist, anti-feminist? Because you say it's anti-feminist, and you have an uproar in your hand.
Yeah.
So say it's feminist, and people kind of go, is it though? Like, is it feminist to go and frame your husband for murder and stuff like this? I think it's sort of more like, I think maybe for Amy, it's probably more like not really self-liberation, but I think it's the whole idea of she's taking control of her life.
Yes.
It's like, I think, I'm not saying like women are going to be like, oh yeah, I really like see eye to eye.
Yeah.
But I think there are women in the world who have, very routine lives where it's like, we have a house, I look after my husband, I go to work, I look after my husband, it's a very routine, humdrum life. Maybe the husband doesn't treat the wives right so much, like they're very a bit lazy, or they don't get involved, or they were like, had all these dreams, but then it's like, I don't know, years down the line, and it's like, oh well, they've all gone, and I'm just going to be a bit lazy and just I'm comfortable with life. I think a lot of women would have come out of either reading the book or seeing the film and have gone, maybe I should take control of my life. Obviously not to the extent of framing your husband for murder, but I think I'm not saying every woman would feel this, but I'm saying there must be a few that it would have twinged with, have gone, actually that, I've sort of am essentially living that life where it's very boring and I'm not being appreciated, and so maybe I should take control of my life. So I think it's sort of essentially not really feminist, but maybe sort of like,
well, I was about to agree, and so I think you can really boil it down to that theme of whether or not you're in control. There's so many motifs, like when Amy decides, she makes the conscious decision, well, I'm not going to kill myself, I'm going to live, and that kind of taking control of a plan that she's put out actually leads to then the mistakes start being made. And equally for Nick, at the same time, in the book at least, that's when he meets that journalist in the bar, and he does an interview just while he's drunk with her, that's where he takes control. Then he stops, takes the cards out of Amy's hands, and that's so I think that theme of, control is obviously kind of the overarching thing that runs through, but I think it's really interesting how being in control of a situation is portrayed in the novel, because it really does dictate exactly which character has the upper hand. Because even though they're so far apart, with the age of the internet, they know what each other. Well, she knows what he's doing, and he can reasonably guess what she's thinking, which is another way that he, you can kind of see that he really understands her, that he's able to guess at what she's playing at. So I really liked that, and I thought actually equally in the film it is portrayed well when they bring the lawyer in, and he's brilliant. I think we'll get on to talking about secondary characters in a minute, but he is brilliant.
I think it's the whole sense of control. I think that obviously is, you can see it's because it's sort of at the start it's like Amy doesn't have control of Amy's lost control of her marriage. Nick's sort of coasting by. Like, I think essentially they both don't have control, essentially. Because it's kind of like they're not happy. They're not. He's essentially found somebody else, admittedly younger, but he's sort of not really participating, and she sort of doesn't have really a leg to stand on in the relationship anyway. So it is that sense of suddenly she's like, right, this is what's going to happen. Like, okay, I'm gonna go missing. Like, I'm gonna be murdered. And it's kind of it's in, and then the whole thing of like in the film as well, where she's like, it's all them. She's got the calendar, flicking through the calendar. And it's like kill self ? And it's like a month later, kill self ? So it's all about choices. It's the whole thing of control and choices. I feel it's like the choices you make sort of are essentially going to define what you do next. I think really that's what I sort of got from it, because at the end of the day she does have a choice. She can leave the marriage, she can try and fix the marriage, but what she does, which is she decides to punish him. So it's kind of, there's so many different choices, and he does the choice. He could. I think it's
the way they take. It's portrayed like everything is a series of cause and effects. And certainly with that, like, that's reflected in Amy's treasure hunt. It's here's the clue, here's the answer, and I think it's her inability to see beyond. Because there are variables in their life, like Nick does lose his job. It's an unhappy time for him, and I'm not saying it's not his fault, but there are two sides to every story, and I feel like certainly Amy's ability to just see everything as one cause leads to another, whereas it's more of a spider web of eventualities that lead to her kind of...
Well, it is the whole thing of it is the two sides to every story. Is essentially, well, it is the book and the film. It's like there's Nick's version of events, and then it flashes to her version of events. Because, as we all know, the diary is a lie. Like, the beginning's the truth, and then I think it's after they move to Missouri.
Yeah, the part 2, isn't
that's
it?
where it's sort of all the lies start happening. It's kind of she just then fabricates everything. So it's kind of it suddenly becomes you sort of more, in a sense, trust his version of events. Because she's, like you said, made this sort of spider web of so many lies and so much deceit and so much like making all of this up, like making up a pregnancy, making up that he beats her, that you sort of you can't really see the wood for the trees really with her, because you can't sort of like calibrate what is right and what is wrong with her. And I think that's essentially quite good, because it's kind of the whole idea of nobody knows the mind of a woman unless it's herself. So I think it's the whole thing of Nick doesn't understand his wife and yet does. I
agree. I know what you mean.
Weird strain of events, but that's what I think about it all.
So quickly, what do you think of the secondary characters?
Well, I think Tanner Bolt's fantastic. I have to just put Tyler Perry is very good. As the actor. I think Tanner Bolt in the book is very good.
I prefer Tanner Bolt in the film.
Oh, do you?
I think in the book, the way I read him, he was like Saul Goodman in Breaking Bad. That kind of cheap polyester suit and that look. Whereas in the film, he came across differently. And I liked the kind of... I love the way he was portrayed in the film. I think I prefer that a lot.
Well, I think because it's the whole idea that it's, he's very honest and blunt, being like, you're going to have to do this, we're going to have to do this, and then, he sort of has that sort of jokey element as well. Because, not in the sense of, like, telling jokes, but he's got, like, a very flippant way of looking at it, where, like...
I think he laughs and says, "You two are the craziest people I've ever known." And he just laughs it off. But that's the way he interacts with the law. His idea of the law is, well, maybe I can't get you out on kind of evidence or legal grounds, but let's change the public perception of Amy first. Well, let's dish some dirt on her. And he's a media man. He understands how to work the public to shape the reception of a court case. So I think that's I really liked him. I also was a big fan of the sister, and actually that almost annoyed me more than Nick, like the way Nick was with Amy, the way he treated his sister, because he just lied to her all the time. And this is someone she's his twin. And she's his business partner, and his twin, and kind of his closest friend. Yeah. And I just feel like he was.
Well, it's the idea, I think, that essentially Margot didn't know her brother.
Yeah, which is really sad, I think.
Yeah, and I think, the whole idea of, like, I think it's more portrayed in the film that she really actually at one point doesn't know, she doesn't know what to believe, and she doesn't know if he did do it or if he didn't do it. Because she's just so torn, because all these lies have come out, and like the whole idea that they've always said that Amy did, that Nick didn't want kids and Amy did, whereas actually it was reversed. It was Amy that didn't want kids and Nick did. Yeah. But he hid that from her, and he hid the idea of the whole thing of Andy, the secret girlfriend, from her. Yeah. He hid, the fact that how unhappy they were. I think she knew they were unhappy. But I don't think to the extent that she would willingly go down a route to almost convict him of murder for it. And I think, at the end of the day, I think she's a very strong character.
Didn't she remortgage the house or sell the business or something?
I think she remortgaged the house.
Yeah, just so that she could, she made a huge sacrifice for her brother. Yeah. And I don't know, I don't feel like he displayed really any loyalty to her by the end. And I think I could almost come to terms with the fact that, yes, he feels very trapped by the situation that Amy's caused. He does. There are parts of him that sort of still want to be her, but he's also trapped in a situation. But then the betrayal of the sister as well, by the end of it, I just thought, no, I don't find that you've got any redeeming qualities
like
at all.
there was bits in Nick where you kind of sort of think like, yeah, he might be a jerk, but he's not. There's no need for him to go to be punished this way. Like obviously he needs to be punished, but it's like at the end of the day, just divorce him or or give him an ultimatum or give him some sort of like consequence or something like this. Like make him don't try and, because I think it's at the end of the day, Amy's put him through so much, and then he kind of just is like, okay, yeah, we can move back in. Yes, I know she sort of traps him, and it's like, the media would have a field day, but it's like, after all that, if that was me, after all that person put me through, and you just kind of go, yeah, okay, that's fine, and then suddenly it's like tricks him into having a baby.
But I think that's her personality again. That's the way she.
Yeah, I think
thinks.
but that's what I mean. Is like the whole thing of he just sort of accepts it, and I think that's why Margot's so unhappy at the end. Is like, you literally could do anything, like just try, and he's like, no, and I think that's the despair. Is she's just like, she's just like kind of sort of has to resign herself to be like, okay, fine, I'll go through this with you. I'm going to be so unhappy, and I know you're going to be unhappy, and this is going to kill both of us. But okay, fine, because I'm loyal to you. And I think that's the whole idea, is there's that loyalty, sort of, yes, through Tanner Bolt, but admittedly he is being paid for it, and the loyalty through Margot. And yet Nick displays no loyalty to either of them, essentially.
The only other person I felt incredibly sorry for was Desi.
Oh,
Neil
poor
Patrick
Desi.
Harris.
Poor Desi.
I mean, there's not a huge amount to say. Is
well,
there?
The death is a bit different, slightly.
Yes, I mean it's fairly graphic in the.
It's trust David Fincher to turn a gruesome scene into an even gruesomer scene.
Yeah.
But because initially Amy drugs him to have sex with him.
Yeah.
And sort of, I don't know. I sort of feel that. Again, it's that whole idea of power, that she gets the box cutter, she makes that decision, and I don't know why. Maybe I'm a bit messed up, but it's that whole idea of after she's committed the act and she's covered in blood and she's sort of on top of him after it's happened, she does a sort of slight whimper, looks down, and then looks up, brushes the hair out of her face, and then it's just back to normal.
Yeah.
And you're that sense of like, oh my lord, like who is this person? It's just fantastic.
Yeah.
Like. I think Rosamund Pike does a very good job.
Yeah, that scene.
That scene really made it for me.
It was a great exposition that wasn't there in the book, because it was. But then I feel like in the book they've built her up so much that
you sort of expect it.
You're ready for her to do something crazy.
They've done it slightly more subtly in the film. I feel that you sort of know she's sort of
capable of it,
but it's only until you see what she does to Desi that you're kind of like, oh, okay, she's really dangerous.
Yeah.
And suddenly it's then like you really don't want to mess with her, and it's like it's not just the whole idea of the actions and the words, it's the actual sort of deeds she does. You kind of go, okay, Amy Elliott Dunn is a very dangerous person,
Yeah, she's,
so I think it's really interesting the way in which she is sort of portrayed throughout both books and stuff. So that's that's my opinion.
Yeah.
So now the big question is, which did you prefer, the book or the film? Because we're going to be doing this. We didn't do this last week. Because I think we're still padding out.
I think it's a no-brainer with Sherlock Holmes, though, isn't it?
That's true. Yeah. But we want to obviously do at the end of each podcast. We want to decide, because at the end of the day we are discussing it, and I think we should decide, not obviously for everybody, but especially for Morlock and me, what we feel was better, because again it is sort of looking at both sides of the book and film or TV series. What did you feel? What do you feel is better?
I think in this case I'm gonna have to say, and it's very rare, but I prefer the film.
Do you?
Yeah. There are things I prefer in the book, and there are things I prefer in the film. But just I don't know. I think there are characters that I like a lot more in the film, and I didn't like any characters in the book, which I suppose I'm meant to, but I like the fact that in the visual portrayal there were aspects of it that I connected with it.
I agree. It's very difficult because I love the book. I think when I read the book the first time, I thought this is fantastic. I was like, they're blatantly going to be making a film.
Yeah,
it's one of those, because I think they're soon to release Dark Places, which is the next book. So she's one of those authors where you're just like, oh, this is just a film script. This is perfect. So and then I saw the film. Oh, I'm so torn. I might have to agree with you. Because just thinking
well, that's
more,
rare.
I know, this is very rare. Because I was thinking when we were starting this, I thought, no, definitely the book's better. I feel the book, there's elements
discussion
to it.
has actually changed, because I'd have said the book was better before we had this discussion.
And I would have said the book because I think I read the book first and then saw the film, which I think was I personally think is always helpful. And then as we've talked about it, I've started thinking about it more, because I think it was only maybe a few weeks ago I rewatched the film, because it's one of those films where I don't think you can watch all the time. I think if you watch it all the time, I think you'd either get very bored of it, or I think you'd then you'd get sick of it, obviously. But I watched it the other week and I just remembered how good it was. And then as we've discussed it, I've realised actually it is very, very good. So I probably have to say on this occasion, we'll side together. We'll be a united
So what
front.
these two literary enthusiasts have come to the conclusion is that the film was better.
Of this book, not of everything, obviously. But what we'll be doing is we'll be starting a hashtag on our Twitter page, which is @MorlockMe, which will be hashtag the film was better. So we'll be changing that each week, obviously, when we decide which is better, the book or the film or TV series.
And feel free to disagree with us as well.
No, absolutely. We'd love to hear from you all, just to sort of, like even in the comment section of the podcast, or even go to our Twitter page and let us know what you think. Like, what do you think about the characters? What do you think about the themes and the plot lines? Do you think the film was better, or do you think the book was better? Do let us know, and we'll also we'll just be looking for any suggestions you have of what we should do for future episodes.
Yeah.
Because we will be doing The Man in the High Castle. This is now deja vu for everyone. We will be doing episode 3. We will be doing The Man in the High Castle.
And then following that, I think The Revenant.
And then hopefully episode 4, because it will be starting to come into near Golden Globe season. We'll be hopefully doing The Revenant, and I think after that we'll be doing The Danish Girl, because I know they're two quite hot commodities at the moment. So we'll be doing those in succession. So that's sort of the next 3 episodes planned at the moment. But we're always looking for suggestions, even if it's about any of the next episodes we've got in mind. Do let us know if you've got any thoughts. But for this week, I think we'll conclude. And so thank you very much for listening. Thank you.
Bye.